Erev Tov Beersheba. Good morning in Shaker Heights. Greetings to friends of Israel around the United States, around Israel, and indeed around the world. My name is Wayne Firestone. I'm your host for what feels like the umpteenth webinar that we've had together during all the ups and downs of COVID. We've come together to celebrate some incredible stories and to just escape together. I know for many of us, it is a weird weather weekend, and that means hot for many of us, particularly here on the East Coast of the United States. But I know in Colorado, snow, and wherever you are, you know you're going to have some escape with a story that you can only somehow connect up to the amazing things that happen in Israel. And indeed today, that is a story we're going to share. It's about a medical miracle that took place. And spoiler alert, happy ending here, really happy ending. But the story itself is a magnificent one, and we're going to meet and talk with some of the people involved in this particular episode. Before we begin, I know some of you are starting to, who are with us live, are starting to put your locations of where you're calling in from. We always like to know a little bit about the audience. But in light of our topic today, I also wonder if anyone wants to express some gratitude toward a surgeon, a physician, a medical institution that helped them. And it's always good to have some gratitude about people who work very hard, and their success is some patient's success. And the family around them. So we have people calling in who are traveling in London, people in Cincinnati, Calgary, Pennsylvania, South Africa. We have a big fan of Dr. Steffenberg's there. So you never know where people are. Cloudy in Toronto. I'm hearing about a transplant team at Duke University in Raleigh, North Carolina. So let us know, spread some of the love today to those physicians and surgeons who have made a difference in your lives. And indeed, we're going to explore that today in this unique panel with you. So I'm going to turn over today, first and foremost, to hear about an incredible institution in Israel. Rachel Heisler-Scheinfeld is the executive director of the American Friends of Soroka Medical Center. She's a Barnard graduate. She got her MBA from University of Rochester. So she comes to us today with an amazing institution that is behind a partnership with NYU Langone, which we're going to hear about in detail. But I want to start with you, Rachel, before we go into the specifics of this particular collaboration between these two great institutions and these two amazing medical teams that we're going to learn about. We wanted first for you to give us a little background and tell us a little bit about that great institution that's pictured behind you there today.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for the beautiful introduction. I also want to thank American Israel Friendship League overall for inviting us and for this amazing partnership. And hello, everyone around the world. I am so thrilled to be sharing this story with you, a really epic story. So yes, behind me is Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. I am based in New York, where I lead American Friends of Soroka Medical Center. You'll learn a little bit more about us as I present to you our story. The story of a miracle that is so rare that it is the only case of its kind to date that happened in all of Israel, and one of just a handful of occurrences in the entire world. And this case of the conjoined twins was cared for by a medical team that was so uniquely prepared, so committed to the healing of the entire population of the Negev, to serving the people of the state of Israel, and to fulfilling our overriding mission to improve global health. That is Soroka. So as Louis Pasteur famously said, luck favors the prepared mind. And the twins that you will meet today were very, very lucky in many, many ways. And one of those ways is that they were born at Soroka Medical Center, at a hospital that was so exquisitely prepared on all fronts. So let's dive in and learn together about Soroka Medical Center and how this medical miracle that is Soroka came to exist. We are known famously also as Israel's healthcare oasis. We exist because of the dream of David Ben-Gurion, his vision that the desert will bloom. He understood that the future of Israel, of a strong Israel, lies in the Negev. Now, what is the Negev? The Negev is the lower 60% of Israel's land mass. It's a huge swath of land, and we are the only major medical center for the entire Negev. Soroka was founded approximately 64 years ago to support the growth and development of the new state of Israel. Today, we are Israel's leading medical center, one of the largest and the most strategic. So some top facts to show you what that all means. The Negev itself is in the heart of Israel. So if you have a map of Israel and you look at the center heart of it, that is actually where Be'er-Sheva lies. And that heart of Israel is also a mere 20 miles from Gaza. We are also one of the most diverse segments in all of the state of Israel. And we also are the busiest hospital in the state of Israel. So let's try to paint a picture with words about this very unique place. You can only imagine how busy it must be to care for 1.2 million people who represent the population of the Negev. That's a lot of people. And 6.5 million people enter the gates of Soroka every year. So there is nonstop action and human drama every single day at Soroka. Over 250,000 emergency room visits. We are also the trauma center that's closest to Gaza, which is hugely strategic for the IDF. Therefore, Soroka plays a vital role for the state of Israel to be prepared at any time for any eventuality. Soroka is part of Clalit. Clalit is the flagship, it is the largest HMO of Israel, and Soroka is the flagship hospital of Israel's busiest and largest HMO. The leadership of Soroka Medical Center, with Dr. Shlomi Kodesh as the Director General at the helm, is dedicated to an ambitious long-term strategic master plan to excel and to lead. That master plan includes constant reinvestment in new infrastructure, constant search and retention and outreach to make sure we have the most qualified staff, support for superb world-class research and innovation, and partnership with Be'er-Sheva and with the state of Israel. And I might add that Be'er-Sheva is fortunate to have an amazing leader itself, which is one of the shining stars of the state of Israel, Ruvik Danilevich, who is part of leading Soroka and leading the Negev in its ascendance and its excellence. So Soroka itself is home to several supreme centers of excellence, including our Genetics Institute, our Cancer Center, where we recently opened the Legacy Heritage Oncology Center and Dr. Larry Norton Institute, the Saban Pediatric Hospital, and the Saban Birth and Maternity Centers. Over 17,000 babies were born at Soroka last year. Of those babies, 50% of those babies were babies of diversity, because our population of the region is 30% Arab, largely due to our Bedouin contingent. Soroka, therefore, plays a huge role in establishing a framework and a basis for peaceful coexistence. This is expressed beautifully in our labor and delivery suites, where you have mothers of all backgrounds coming together for that universal goal of delivering a healthy baby. And it is, we hope that you will have, as a friend of Soroka, the opportunity to come and visit us and see this diversity someday, because it will really be something that is a uniquely inspirational event for you. Other centers of excellence include cardiac care, urology, where we have completely redeveloped our program thanks to stellar leadership and a strong vision for the future, and the emergency center and trauma center. And of course, neurosurgery, neurology, and plastic surgery, which you're gonna hear more about today. And the list goes on and on. We have a strong commitment to education. Soroka is home to 2 medical schools, and we're the teaching hospital for Ben-Gurion University's medical schools. Our clinical research is extremely prolific, with thousands of peer-reviewed research studies in major international publications, and on a daily basis, on an ongoing basis, we have hundreds of novel research underway. And alongside all of this is a deep commitment to Tikkun Olam. One of our medical schools, which is the Medical School for International Health, is specifically focused on bringing about a new generation of physicians that's committed to global health. Our staff itself goes above and beyond on their own time to prepare and to contribute to this Tikkun Olam around the world. For example, we consistently lead a prenatal care center in Ghana. We respond actively to global disasters around the world. Most recently, we were instrumental with the Golda Meir Field Hospital in Ukraine. So Clalit was actually the leader of this great humanitarian effort in Ukraine, and together with Sheba Hospital, and several of our key Soroka doctors staffed this hospital. And COVID. Our response to COVID was epic, and it really underscored how we harnessed innovation, how we were able to pivot super quickly to lead in testing, in vaccination when it was available, and to treatment, and really in a way that helped stabilize the entire country. And through it came out some really novel research that helped reduce cost and increase access to testing around the world, and also led to some really interesting collaborations with industry and with government entities. So that, again, is the story of Soroka. And all of what we do on a day-to-day basis helps us gain acceptance in the communities that we serve for peaceful coexistence. And we're a beacon to all of the world for that. So a word about innovation at Soroka. Soroka is in, as I said, the Negev, and the Negev is now home to a deep installation of army bases, and the Israel Defense Forces is known for its commitment to serial innovation. We also have huge synergy with Ben-Gurion University, which is located right across the street. We're partners with them in so much of our innovation and in our clinical research. And just jumping again to COVID, that was also a great collaboration and an example of how we keep our patients safe and keep our staff safe while saving lives and lighting the pathway to innovation and to new treatments that will save more lives and help us in our humanitarian mission around the world. A quick word about Soroka Friends, about American Friends of Soroka Medical Center. We are a community of leaders based in the United States devoted to supporting Soroka Medical Center. We have a 15-member board of directors, and we also have a medical and scientific advisory council. We host events primarily in New York, in Miami, in Los Angeles. We would love for you to join our community. You can find us on social media at Soroka Friends. Look at our website, soroka.org, and we look forward to welcoming you and in particular, we'd love to welcome you at Soroka. So should you be in Israel this summer, we're having a mission to Israel, not too late to join us in our travels. If you'd like to learn more about it, reach out after this webinar. One of the cornerstones of our mission to Israel this year is the dedication of a unique project, a healing arts project, where we're installing a unique artwork called The History of the Star of David at Soroka. And we will be gathering in Be'er Sheva on July 10th for that dedication. So in a moment, you're going to meet all of the protagonists who are going to tell you and bring you deeply into the story of these conjoined twins and this unique story. In my opinion, it is what represents everything about Soroka. It is the intersection of the diversity, of the innovation, of the collaboration, and of the human touch. We're going to play a video for you in just a second that will paint a picture. And I want to thank you all for being with us today and enjoy. So thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
הכל מוכן, כולנו מאוד מאוד מתרגשים לקראת הניתוח. כל הבדיקות המקדימות, בדיקות מעבדה, חיבור למכשירי ניטור, הכל בוצע.
כמובן שאחרי כל ההכנות, עם כל המודלים שבנינו, עם כל הסטאפ של חדר ניתוח שבמיוחד נערכנו לעניין הזה, עם ה-Surgical Theater וה-VR של התאומות, ועם המודל התלת-מימדי שהכנו מראש. הציפייה זה הפרדה מלאה בין התינוקות, כאשר שתי התינוקות מסיימות את הניתוח בריאות כמו שהם היום. ותודה גם לכל מי שמשתתף, זה עבודת צוות, אין פה עבודה של אחד, עבודה של כל כך הרבה אנשים. וכמובן כל השנה הזאת היה מוקדש להכנות ותאומים.
סיימנו את החלק האחורי והפכנו את התינוקות בזהירות, ולמעשה עכשיו אנחנו נתחיל לעבוד על החלק הקדמי. התאומה השנייה נמצאת בחדר השני.
We're just finishing the twins separation procedure. It has gone extremely well. I'm delighted how well the whole team's done. It's an excellent team here, and it's been a real pleasure to be a part of it.
החלק הנורוכירורגי של הניתוח של ההפרדה של התאומות הסתיים. אנחנו עשינו את השחזור של קרומי המוח, שחזור של הגולגולת, וכרגע המנתחים הפלסטיים ממשיכים את הניתוח לסגירה של האור. לשמחתנו הרבה, הכל הלך כפי שקיווינו.
Wow, just watching those images really sort of gives, I mean, it gives away the ending in one aspect, but this is a story, we heard the word in Hebrew and translated from Dr. Gideon about teamwork about 10,000 times in our preparation for this, and we're really going to focus on that, what this looked like. And so we're going to start with a little bit of background and explanation from our colleague in New York, Dr. David Steffenberg. He's the chief of Pediatric Plastic Surgery at NYU Langone. He's graduate of New York Medical College. If I understand correctly, received a Medical Technology Excellence Award from Mayor Bloomberg for his separation of conjoined twins in New York. And so has not just street cred on this topic, but enters the story here with very specific experience. Dr. Steffenberg, my understanding is this is extremely rare. How rare is it, each year that medical teams are working on separating conjoined twins? And please tell us a little bit about how you were pulled into assisting and collaborating on this project in the Negev.
Well, thanks, Wayne. The problem here is very rare. I think everyone has an awareness of conjoined twins. We all, perhaps as children, remember hearing about Chang and Eng, who were the original conjoined twins in the 19th century, who were never separated because medical care was just not there yet. It turns out that they were actually a very simple case, but joined at the chest. Now, today, what we're talking about is an extremely rare kind of conjoined twin, what we call craniopagus, meaning that the twins are joined at the head. And in the most complex cases like this one, the brain and the circulation around the brain is also involved. Now, these cases are about 2% of all conjoined twins. We believe that conjoined twins occur about 1 in 200,000 births, so certainly not common at all. And craniopagus twins, we think, are about 2% of those. So if our math is correct, it's about 1 in 10 million births. So roughly, that's about one set of craniopagus twins being born in the world every year. And since my involvement almost 20 years ago with the care of these particular kinds of conjoined twins, that's turned out to be pretty accurate. And certainly getting the twins along the way is a big issue. So getting twins like this diagnosed early and getting them to a center where they can be taken care of, because many of them, unfortunately, don't survive past the first week. So that, again, points to the expertise at Soroka. I should point out, sort of dialing back almost 20 years when I first got involved in these cases, specializing in difficult craniofacial plastic surgery operations, I was presented with the possibility of taking care of a set of craniopagus twins from the Philippines. And I presented the twins to the rest of the team. Our pediatric neurosurgeon was interested. It was an interesting problem. But in New York, this had never been attempted before. Certainly none of us on the medical team had ever been involved in any of these cases before. And what we found out was that even in the preceding 40 years, as healthcare was improving, the mortality for these babies was 50%. So mothers and fathers were presented with a terrible choice. Which twin would they want to keep? And this, of course, is unthinkable and something that we never want to have our families or our patients see. And so it was an opportunity to think about using our techniques in craniofacial surgery and in pediatric neurosurgery. Well, how can we do this better? And we did that almost 20 years ago with a highly successful separation here in New York. And shortly after that, because of that success, we were asked to participate in the separation of another set of twins in London, their first set at a very experienced children's hospital. And one of the neurosurgery residents who was present at that surgery when I was there was Dr. Gideon, who I think you saw in the video was also able to participate here at Soroka. So it was kind of a joy. And you can see how this is really a very small group of experts. And as is true, whenever we take care of rare problems, we know to reach out to each other. And I should point out that in the past 20 years, based on our experience in New York, the survival of these twins has increased, and we're not aware of any that have not survived over the past 20 years. And I've been able to advise and participate in other separations over the years. And so now we're in Israel, in the Negev, and we have many firsts and certainly higher highs than we've known before. For the first time that I'm aware of, craniopagus twins were diagnosed prenatally, taken care of prenatally, delivered and taken care of postnatally, and ultimately separated by the exact same healthcare system. And where continuity of care is so important in healthcare, it's sort of our catchword around the world. This is the first time I'm aware of that a single system has provided all of that at the absolute highest level. So when these twins were diagnosed prenatally, Dr. Eldad Silberstein, who you saw in the video, is the director of Pediatric Plastic Surgery at Soroka, and Dr. Mickey Gideon, who will speak in a little bit, is the director of Pediatric Neurosurgery. This was during the pandemic. They reached out to me actually first by email and ultimately through text messaging. And of course, I was very happy to participate and to help in any way I could. And over the following months, we were able to plan both the plastic surgery portion and the neurosurgical portion. And ultimately, even during the pandemic, Clalit and Soroka and the Israeli government were able to make it possible for me to join the team and participate in the surgery. And I'm so grateful for that. Before sort of looking at some photos of the girls, I want to point out why this is that neurosurgeons and plastic surgeons would ever need to work together like this. And to put it simply, there are some problems that are just so complex that we require each other's support. I think in these cases, we're separating the brain and the blood vessels. I think it's clear to everyone that, of course, neurosurgeons need to be there. But at the end of the day, when these twins are separated, if the brains cannot be covered with healthy living tissue, which is deficient in these cases, there's never enough, well, then all of the brilliant neurosurgery has really gone to waste because the results will be disastrous. So we need the best neurosurgeons, we need the best plastic surgeons, we need great planning, great technology, and certainly a superb healthcare system. And so that's what Soroka, I think, was able to pull together. So with that in mind, we can go to the first photograph. And when we see babies who are conjoined, I think if we look carefully at the photographs, we'll see that there's not enough skin to cover the skull that needs to be reconstructed. And we need to make sure that the cerebrospinal fluid around the brain, and of course, Dr. Gideon is going to speak about this, the cerebrospinal fluid has to be sealed off and watertight because the babies are subjected to the risk of meningitis as well as brain exposure if the scalp breaks down. And so if we look at the twins here on the bottom, you can see that the scalp is deficient. And I believe we can go to the second photo. Our solution for this in plastic surgery is what we call tissue expansion. And put quite simply, we put water balloons underneath the scalp and gradually inflate them with saline. Now, this is a long, tedious process. And in young babies like this, it's fraught with complications. The plastic surgery team at Soroka with Dr. Silberstein took the babies to the operating room about 5 or 6 months ahead of separation. And although it was challenging, they were able to get what you see here, which looks silly, but you can see that with these balloons, these tissue expanders, there's now extra skin that can be used to safely reconstruct them. And if we move to the third photograph, we can see this is perhaps one of my favorite things. Now, 20 years ago, when we were able to utilize stereolithographic models or 3D printed models from our CAT scans, of course, the team in Soroka and Dr. Gideon took this to a whole new level. They had these models made. Now, these images are just two-dimensional images, but these are images of three-dimensional models that you can see are modular, and they include all of the components that the surgical team would have to deal with, including the tissue expanders on top. And I should add that all of these fit together with magnets. So this is, again, another first. This is, again, I think Soroka and the Israeli team bringing every component, all of the experience that we've had around the world, and bringing it to a completely new level. One other first that I want to point out is that the separation of these twins was at about their first birthday. Dr. Gideon will talk about this, but I believe this is also the youngest successful separation. And because of that, we know that brains in young babies, when they're put through these kinds of surgeries, they recover better, and their risk of long-term neurologic compromise is much lower. So lots and lots of firsts, lots to be proud of. And I'm so grateful to have been a part of this, to Dr. Mickey Gideon for being an extraordinary leader, and Dr. Eldad Silberstein also for being an extraordinary leader, great surgeons. And I'm so pleased and proud to have been able to participate with this. So thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing what Dr. Gideon has to say.
Absolutely. Dr. Steffenberg, this is such a fascinating example of what collaboration actually looks like, and what the results can be. And we're so grateful for just laying it out there for us. I was a little frightened when I saw the skulls behind you initially. But the ease with which you talked about the having all those firsts sort of line up, I guess, is not what a physician is looking for. I mean, it's nice to be able to say you accomplished it and the things that you learned from it, but I guess as those firsts start adding up, it creates lots of risks and challenges for the teams working on it. So we're going to hear now from your colleague, Dr. Mickey Gideon. We saw him briefly in the introductory film. He's the director of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Soroka. He got both an MD and an MBA from Ben Gurion University. I'm tempted to ask you, Dr. Gideon, which you needed more, the MBA or the MD, or which you relied upon more, because indeed this, as we learned, was a single institution working with a specific set of patients and family from A to Z, and so it really did require reaching out to other colleagues around the world, Dr. Steffenberg and others, and I know we're not going to go into any of the specifics of the family in an effort to ensure their privacy. But can you tell us a little bit about what kind of team you had to put together in order to successfully conclude this surgery?
Hello, Wayne, and thank you very much for having me in this webinar. I'm quite excited to be with you and share with you our experience. And first of all, I want to pinpoint, a little something that is very common with physicians. All physicians around the world are talking the same language. We talk the human medical language. And it made it very easy for me to reach out to David and to other consultants to help us in this case. And we feel the same with colleagues that are approaching us for their problems. So for physicians, it was a quite easy feeling for me to just send an email to David And I had no doubt, and in a few days, we are going to have a response, and you will be happy to be with us in this case. Regarding in this unique case, and this is another term that I want to emphasize, the term in these cases is VUCA. This is a case that you never seen before for me as an experienced pediatric neurosurgeon, and I have more than 10 years of experience. They just call you one day from the ultrasound unit when the mother was, she was 4 months pregnant. And they say, you have to come over. And I said, okay, why? They said, you know, it's something that you have to see. And then I went to this unit and I saw the ultrasound, and you see these two babies and you say, okay, congratulations, we have twins. And then you look a little bit more and then you recognize that the heads are attached. And then you are, at first, you are in shock. For me, it was a shock because I never saw that before. The first time experience. And then they said, okay, now you have to have a conversation and discussion with the parents. They have conjoined twins, craniopagus twins. And now you have, as a neurosurgeon, as a leading surgeon, this is done mainly by the neurosurgeon. The separation of the brain and the vessels of the brain is the most complex part of the surgery. So you are leading the surgery, you have to have the discussion. So I met the parents and, you know, I didn't know what to say. So I said, listen, this is the situation. Your babies are attached by their head. I don't know enough, and you have to be candid in these cases. I don't know enough about these situations. I have to find out more. I have to read all the articles. I have to reach out to the people who've done this before. And then we can have the discussion regarding the prognosis. She was 4 months pregnant. And of course, the question of aborting the pregnancy is a question. We know that these babies, we know that conjoined twins are having several other malformations. They could have some other, you know, cardiac malformation, respiratory malformations. And as Dr. Steffenberg mentioned, only 25% survive more than a week. So we have also to kind of have this discussion with the parents if they want to stop the pregnancy. But I said, you know what, let's have other investigations. Let's have this fetal MRI scan that we can see the brains, we can see what they're sharing, and then I can have this discussion with you. So we had the fetal MRI, and after this fetal MRI, and after reviewing this MRI, I came to conclusion that we can do the separation surgery. I didn't know quite well how good it will go, but I had the feeling that with good multidisciplinary team, as we gathered here, with the best medical technology available, we can do this operation. So I told the parents that we can go on and prepare ourselves for the plan. So the babies, fortunately for us, we also had, you know, several simulations before they were born. They were born on August 2020. It was a planned cesarean section. And previous to this cesarean section, our team had several simulations just to be prepared for any kind of complication that can be during the delivery. And fortunately for us, nothing happened and they were born quite good, and, you know, the delivery was quite smooth. And after this delivery, we have to kind of make the plan for the separation surgery. And this is the point that I want to say that, you know, in medicine, we have this saying that a fool with a tool is still a fool. No matter how your technology, you have the best technology, no matter what you have, if you don't have the good team, if you don't have the experts, the operation will not succeed. So I gathered the team, and of course, our team included Dr. Steffenberg, as I mentioned, and of course, Dr. Jelani from Great Ormond Street Hospital from London. He's a pediatric neurosurgeon with previous experience. And altogether, we had several discussions to see what we're going to do and how we are going to do. And I wrote, you know, I kind of wrote the plan like a military operation plan. Everybody knows what to do, when to do, and what comes next and what comes before. It took, you know, 50 people to do this operation all together. So after we gathered the team and after we were well coordinated, we made these amazing models, 3D physical models for simulation before the operation. And we also reached out, as you know, Israel is a startup nation, and I have quite good familiarity with these startups, in medical startups. So I reached out to these startups in Israel looking for virtual 3D modeling. So we found this surgical theater, and we brought the console, we wear the glasses, and we did the simulations also with virtual reality. So after we did all these preparations, 3D models and virtual 3D models, on September 2021, we went for the operation for the final stage after the first stage that was mentioned by Dr. Steffenberg. I wrote on my military or medical operation plan, it was called Operation Plan Twins. I wrote it's gonna take 12 hours. Actually, it took 12 hours and 4 minutes. We started at 10:47 a.m. and we finished our operation at 10:51 p.m. So it went wonderful. Everything was well coordinated, and we took, into consideration every complexity that could be in this operation, every complication. Sometimes you have to stop the operation and take the babies to CT scan or MRI scan. If, God forbid, there is any kind of bleeding or swelling or edema or something happens, and we took all these scenarios in our operation plan. And fortunately for us, and thanks to all the team who were part of this successful operation, miracle for me, it went well, and the babies came out of the operation without any damage to the brain tissue, without any damage to the vessels of the brain. And of course, with the help of the plastic surgeons, we could cover deficits, we could cover the operation, and we could complete the operation without any difficulties. For me, it is, kind of the top of my career. I cannot say that's, kind of different. It was very emotional because it was a process. It wasn't just operation. I kind of was with the parents from the beginning, from the pregnancy, through the delivery, through the preparation, through all the discussions we had regarding the risks and regarding, what can happen and what can happen with one of them or both of them. It could be a very severe neurological deficit or even death. And, for me, it was very emotional. And I think I never had these emotions before. Of course, every operation is unique. Every operation is important, but this case was amazing. So thankfully it went well. And for us, it was, there is another saying in medical terms. We always say, see one, do one, and teach one. So we already saw and did one. And now we are going to teach, we're consultants to other centers, as Dr. Steffenberg was for us. So we have a set of twins from Egypt, and we have a set of twins from Ghana. And now we are consulting them and trying to get them prepared for their operation in the future.
Well, I think that part of the story is frankly, and Dr. Steffenberg referred to this as well, it's sort of one of the untold stories. Obviously, most of the relationship between a doctor and a patient happens in an office. There's privacy, whatever kind of consultations take place outside of it. And ultimately, it's between the patient and the medical team that's supporting them. But in this case, you really did have to be very entrepreneurial about and innovative in finding out how to address it. And then over a very long period of time, working with that family to build their confidence and educate them. And I'm sure can you talk without revealing any confidences, obviously, just a little bit about the patient care aspect of sort of holding their hands through this long, first a pregnancy, then a surgery, and now the post-op care.
Just, it's kind of, I get emotional when I'm talking about it, because, you know, it's we are talking about heroes, but I have to say that the heroes were the parents in this case, because they have to bring their babies twice weekly to our institution. You know, we did this first step of inserting the expanders, and you have to inflate these expanders every 2 or 3 days. So they have to come with these babies. Just think about taking these babies who are attached by their heads, by their hands, in the car, or, you know, kind of bring them. There are some cultural aspects also involved in these cases. They don't want people to see their babies. They want, you know, the parents asked us quite specifically to keep this case very confidential and don't talk about it. So we respected their wish, and we kind of never went out with these babies. So for me, I'm involved in every case. Pediatric neurosurgery is a very sensitive discipline. In every case, I'm involved emotionally, and I think every physician is involved emotionally. Without your emotion, you cannot be a good healer, you cannot be a good physician, and especially in this case, you have to be candid with the parents. You have to say what you know and what you don't know. And in this case was so many, there were so many unknowns. It was very, you know, kind of volatile situation. You don't know what about the pregnancy, how it's going to turn out. You don't know about, you know, it's an uncertain condition. You don't know about the brain, about the vessels. It's a very ambiguous and complex. So you have all of these things that you have to share with the parents. I have to share with them my fears. I have to share with them, you know, they have to share with me their feelings. Sometimes they're, you know, kind of asking me if it wasn't, you know, if they have to kind of stop the pregnancy, what do I think? Am I sure every step they're asking me these questions? Am I sure that we are going to succeed with this operation? And I say, I'm not sure, but I'm quite positive. We have the best people. We have the best team gathered here, the best technology. So it took us a process. And without these emotions involved, I don't think that we could handle it so good as we did. And of course, after the operation, it is still an ongoing process. We are following these babies, we're following their development. They are now under our child development center in Soroka and coming every 2 to 3 days. They have this physical therapy. So we are kind of meeting them every 2 or 3 days, and we are so happy to see them without any kind of, you know, neurologically, they're intact and they're progressing well. And it's an amazing, it's a miracle, and the parents are, so you can imagine the feelings behind this operation.
Indeed.
You can imagine
and certainly all of our we're getting a very strong reaction from people about, as I'm sure both of you have heard from since the story has become more public. Dr. Steffenberg, when you were showing the slides earlier, and maybe we could pull up again the second slide where you get to see sort of for the first time what is involved with expansion. I wouldn't have known without looking at the picture itself to really understand. Can you share now, with a 20-year arc of experience on this, what was that the initial breakthrough essentially to be able to do that, and has that changed at all, or other aspects of the care and treatment changed over the 20 years based on what you've seen in different cases?
Well, Wayne, I think, what makes these so challenging is that when it happens, when we see craniopagus twins, they are all different. Some are involved much more in a more complex way. Some not as complex when we get lucky. And that's why this prenatal diagnosis is so important, because the medical team has time to sort of do what Dr. Gideon and Dr. Silverstein did, which was, get all the information they can start reading about it, which is what we did 20 years ago. And of course, 20 years ago, we had very, very, very depressing information about the outcomes of these twins. But the breakthrough, I think, is sort of the concept of treating the twins as individuals and not using just the same recipe over and over again. Incidentally, that's the way I look at rhinoplasties when I do nose surgery. Every patient is different, and we can only get the kind of results that we want when we're designing each particular part of the operation. In some sets of twins, the early breakthrough you mentioned, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, that set of twins had complexities in very different ways. And one of the challenges that we have, and what Dr. Gideon and I were anxious about, was being able to get him to do what he needed to do to get the brain separated without causing a tremendous amount of brain swelling. And that is a very common scenario, at least historically, that leads to the possibility of strokes for a variety of reasons. And also, when the brain is swollen, it becomes much, much harder for the plastic surgeons to cover the swollen brain. The brain could be 2 or 3 times its normal size. So as a plastic surgeon, I can't say, hey, Mickey, go easy on the brain. I mean, I know he's going to do that, but it's the complexity of the conjoining that might make that so difficult. And so there are different approaches that we've designed for that. Obviously, careful pediatric anesthesiologists, you got to make sure you have that box checked. And in the most complex cases, we determined that the breakthrough was simply doing the operation in what we call stages. It could be 3 or 4 major operations to try to minimize the swelling. And between the surgery, the babies are allowed to heal. The babies are allowed to get more physical therapy and get more nutrition. And so between operations, we're actually making them stronger and stronger and keeping those risks down. The idea of going to the operating room and simply saying, well, whatever happens, happens, or going into the operating room with our fingers crossed is just not acceptable to any of us.
So in this case, if I understood from what Dr. Gideon said, it was a 12-hour and 4-minute surgery, so over by 4 minutes of the plan. Were there, just to clarify, were there any additional surgeries required after that? Or
well, I think to be clear, Dr. Gideon was being polite. Those were 4 minutes that I wasted. That was my fault. But I think, the planning could not have been more, I would say, Hollywood. I mean, it was beautifully scripted in a way that is mind-boggling because you can't predict all this. And I also want to point out, Dr. Gideon used a quote that I've always loved, which is a fool with a tool is still a fool. And what we know well from what we do is that the technology that was used so expertly here, the technology which gave insight into the problem was amazing. And yet we know that there were other cases that are well published, and the surgeons have spoken about them, where they say, the poor outcome. And actually one set of twins, 29-year-old Iranian twins that were separated and had a devastating outcome in the operating room. The surgeons, who were also well-known and experienced, their conclusion was it was the technology that failed us. It was the technology that failed these twins. And of course, the fool with the tool is still a fool. It's how that technology is used and what conclusions the physicians come to. It's that human element cannot be reproduced.
Dr. Gideon, the technology that you referred to, when you first went out to a startup on the virtual imaging to be able to see it and understand it, is this a normal, regular thing now to practice? Did you actually practice the surgery in a sense with the virtual technology? And is that more common today, even I see Dr. Steffenberg shaking his head. Can you tell that maybe briefly just about what that means as a physician to sort of practice it virtually and then to take it to your patient?
So neurosurgeons, they usually use CT scans and MRI scans or angiography of the vessels. And this is very common in every operation in neurosurgery. So we did our CT scans and MRI scans even 2 or 3 times for every, for the babies. And we did angiography, but the problem is it gives you a 2-dimensional sense of the brain and the vessels, the interface between the brain, the interface between the vessels and the shared vessels. So you have this 2-dimensional picture of the conjoined twins. And if you want to get the 3-dimensional and see all the complexity of these tissues that are involved, the brain, the vessels, the covering of the brain, the meninx, the skull and the skin. So you have to make a 3D models of these babies. And this is done now. It's very common to do these 3D printing models. We use the best one available. We use the 3D models that we could take to OR and practice. I have them just, this was the first model we used. And you can see this model here. This model has the skin, the skull, the brain tissue, the vessels. So we took several models to the OR to practice on and to coordinate between the teams to see how complex it is. And keep in mind that you start the operation when the twins are on their bellies, okay? And during the operation, after the first half of the operation is over, you have to turn them to their back and continue with the operation. It is very complex. They are half attached and half disconnected. So to just turn them on the back during the operation, it takes teamwork and effort. So we did these 3D models for simulations. And also we asked to have this virtual reality. This is actually Surgical Theater is it's a startup company started by pilots. They have the simulators. They have, pilots have their simulators for flights. So these pilots came out with this idea of simulation for surgeons, and they started with this virtual 3D modeling.
Wow.
So we asked them for help, and they helped us with this virtual reality. So we had so many simulations before the actual operations. And I think it was one of the main things that makes us, made us more prepared for this operation. Well, but still, I think the human part is the most important. Okay, the neurosurgeons, plastic surgeons, anesthesiologists, the staff from the pediatric intensive care unit, all of the involved people are the most important part. Yes.
Indeed. Well, no fools in this group, that's for sure.
No fools.
The number one, we're not going to be able to unfortunately get to all the questions that have arisen so far. But the number one question for sure is how the girls are doing today. So I want to put up, we've got a little clip, which will, I think, be a great way to send everybody off to either a Shavua Tov, to start to a new week, to our friends in Israel, and to a happy Sunday ending. So let's go ahead and show that clip, and then I'll give you each a sentence or two to close us up today. So
it is amazing.
Dr. Gideon, what's the long-term prognosis now, just in a sentence or two, for the twins?
You know, I think the long-term prognosis is excellent. They are kind of progressing quite fast and good. We still have to, you know, neurologically, we can say they have no deficits, but it remains to be seen about their cognitive and the behavioral condition. But as we can see every day, they're progressing and they're doing well, and they're looking normal babies and having normal lives. And this was our, you know, our kind of what we wished for. So thanks God for the time being, it's wonderful.
Dr. Steffenberg, 20 years from now, what's the headline you want to read when you look at the arc of the innovation and work of your colleagues now from around the world? What's the thing that you think is possible today, given how much innovation we see going forward?
I think just to be able to see, like this case, it's just so amazing to see what goes into the case amounts to something better for the babies and their families, and to have everyone that comes after me do better than me is my dream.
Just one word, I think in 20 years, David is going to separate 3 heads attached. So this is the next operation for David.
Well, we always like to talk about collaboration in the American-Israel context as 1 + 1 = 3. In this case, you all have really given us the inspiration to see what medical technology, collaboration, and hard work of your teams can result in. We're grateful to all of you, Rachel, for sharing this medical miracle story with us, and indeed the invitation for people to come visit now that you can in Israel and meet some of really the wonder workers in medical care who are doing just amazing things for their local patients, but also contributing to all of humanity with their expertise. As always, we'll be back. We do these webinars because, frankly, we're excelling. We're just so excited to share these stories. So come back and join us next week. We have a briefing with the Israel Defense Forces spokesperson on the regional situation. We hope everyone has a safe week, and indeed want to say shalom wherever you are around the world.
Shalom and thank you.
Shalom. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne.
And thank you, everyone, for being a part of it.